Hey friends, Ed McDonough here, and welcome to Live Stream Wednesday, coming to you from Walpole, Massachusetts, and streaming live on Facebook, LinkedIn, and livestreamwednesday.com. So today, I'm really excited to have on my guest, voice communications coach and voiceover expert, Daya Ottley. Now, based in Trinidad, Daya has over a decade of experience working in radio broadcasting, news presenting, and stage acting. And he's created a unique voice coaching program that allows anyone to present their best version of themselves through effective utilization of their voice. So welcome to the show, Daya. I'm so glad to have you here. And obviously you can see I need help, so I'm really looking forward to learning from you today.
Hey, Ed, you sound great. You sound great. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thanks.
And I, most people just give a little introduction when they come and say thank you. I wanted to introduce and say thank you in a different way, if you don't mind me going ahead and doing that, right?
Oh, absolutely. Take it away.
A unique intro. Hey, folks, what do you know? I'm here to talk about you and your voice and the flow. So call up your friends and give your neighbor a holler. Your time here is worth more than $1 million. Listen real close about giving your voice some color. So sit back, relax, because it's Live Stream Wednesday with Ed McDonough.
Oh, awesome. Awesome. Great job. Thanks so much for that. That's a first.
And inside of that, I was using intonation, inflection. So it was also a demonstration of how we can use our voice, a little rhythm as well. So that's another tip.
Hey, so speaking about that, talk to me a little bit about because I've read some of your stuff and I know that you talk about modulation and intonation and expression and emotion and what's all of that about and how can that actually help somebody?
That's a bunch, because each one of those components that you mentioned, Ed, I teach them separately. So emotion is important, intonation is important, and let's just take emotion, for example, because if you had to connect with someone, you had to talk to them, then you want to communicate some level of emotion or concern. An example I would give is perhaps your spouse or your significant other. You want to say, I really appreciate you. But if someone doesn't really have that emotion, I really appreciate you. I just want to tell you how much I really appreciate you. It's different if you say, you know what, you lower your tone, and you could probably be a little softer than loud, because volume could communicate excitement. So if you lower it, I really appreciate you. It makes a big difference. So emotion, just in that example, is so important. Intonation is how you emphasize certain words, and where I intonate, which is hi, Ed. It's really good to be here inside of Live Stream Wednesday. Notice my tone went up and down. I could have said, hi, Ed. It's good to be here on Live Stream Wednesday. And that has no intonation, has no modulation to it. So people have different challenges. Some people can intonate really well, but they may not have emotion. Some people can do different things, and everyone has a unique challenge. Some people talk too quickly, and so people can't understand them. Some may talk too slowly. And so in my area of expertise, because I am a voiceover actor by profession for over 2 decades, and learning that, as you mentioned in the beginning, broadcasting and different things, I just had a lot of exposure, a lot of training. And I decided to just pull all this together and form voice communication training.
Awesome. So speaking about that, I think people kind of get confused about voice communication versus like public speaking. So what's the difference there?
So voice communication is something I've coined myself, and it's simply because I wanted to make that distinction between that and public speaking. There are like 3 major types of verbal communication. You have the interpersonal verbal communication, which is just you and someone else. It could be you and a good friend. It could be you and a staff member or a colleague. And then you have that group communication where it's like a small group of 6 people. You know that there's some people who are terrified to stand on a stage and give a speech or a presentation, but they're very comfortable with a group of 8. So that group communication is different skills you need for that. And then you have public speaking or public communication verbally, where of course you're standing and literally addressing a crowd, a group, which is presentations, etc. So there are a lot of people that coach public speaking, and there's a whole world in that. And we respect the people who teach public speaking, because that's a whole other study. I don't focus on public speaking. What I focus on is your voice. How we use it in any circumstance. Like I always say, from your boardroom to your living room, you have to know how to use your voice. And that's the key. And so, yes, you can do all that, and then you could go and learn all the skills in public speaking after, because it talks to you about, your presentation skills and everything else, and eloquence and words to use, all of that. But I focus on the timbre and the use of your articulators. And some people may have heavy tongues and they don't pronounce words clearly, and so it's a totally different type of training.
I think you just covered all the problems that I have, so thank you. So let's take a step back for a second. And how did you actually even get started down this road?
How did I get started? I wonder myself, Ed. I know that I started off just enjoying, like any little kid, being involved and exposed to different aspects of voice. And I never knew where that would lead. And I remember one day a friend of mine said, "Why don't you try doing a commercial?" And I was like, as a teenager, middle teens that time, I tried it out. And he said, "Yeah, you should probably really try seriously and sign up for training to learn how to use your voice." And at that time, there was no voice-over coach. At least in Trinidad, I knew of none. And so the closest thing to me was a broadcasting coach, and they taught me how to read the news. And for us, it was you literally, for a radio station, you could just learn how to read the news really well, and you could get hired for that. So I did that, and I did pretty well at it. And that training to learn how to read the news was really, really testing. You had to have a real inner resolve, because you can't weigh in or dip at any point in time. You have to be consistent to learn how to breathe. And from there, like I was saying earlier, I got exposed to so many different aspects of it. And later on in my life, I got trained by a coach in Los Angeles in voiceover acting, because I live in Trinidad and Tobago. It's an island, and I felt like if there were no more people to teach me what I really wanted to learn, so I went exploring outside. And after that, I still do voiceover acting professionally. I still do jobs. I still voice ads. But in addition to that, I coach people in how to use their voice. And my service, my training service, is called Vocalize. And I coach people on the Vocalize. And the reason Vocalize started was because I had a friend who said, "Teach me how to speak." And I said, "But you can talk." And then they said, "No, how to enunciate and flow like you." And I was like, okay. I pulled together something, Ed, and he really came out really well. And he was pleased with the results. And so I decided, let me start a business. And that was it, because it just took all the knowledge of news and voiceover training and everything else. And I created some training programs, and I still keep updating myself and doing research. And it's an amazing journey, and people are not familiar with it. They like you asked just now, what's the difference? People are not too familiar. People know of public speaking, but voice communication is pretty new. If I Google voice communication, it talks about digital strategies and different things. I don't see yet what I'm talking about as voice communication. So it's something new.
That's awesome. We got to get the word out there, and it sounds like there's probably some help for me in the future too. So,
Anytime.
So what about, can anyone get coached on how to use their voice in a better way?
I would say yes. I did some kids as well. Sometime no, kids are different because it takes everything inside of you to train the kids to focus, and so you have to create a whole different program for kids. So I have coached kids. I've coached teens. Teens are fun because not that adults aren't fun, but I like to do fun things. And my coaching is different, is interactive. I don't stand up and say, okay, so the three principles of voice are, I'm not like that. I love to give people a challenge, and so with teens, it's life, and it connects with me, so I love doing that. And then of course adults, I'll do people who literally CEOs or executives or salespeople who really just want to improve their delivery or their presentation a little bit. And yeah.
That's awesome. So, are there any pet peeves that you have with when you hear somebody speak? You can use me as an example if you want.
No, I actually don't hear anything with you really, but a pet peeve would be for me would be the I will call them fillers. So fillers would be when people are talking and they want to express something, particularly people in high offices. So you would have governors or CEOs making a presentation and talking, and they literally take a long time to say one sentence. I did a kind of a clip, tip on that on LinkedIn as well once, where the CEO was like, so let me tell you about. You remember the time when? All right. Let me go back. And you could never seem for them to get a thought out, and that is one of my things. Is like it literally, if you are a salesperson or you have to make presentations often and you find that challenge, then give me a holler, because I think certainly it would affect people's attention. And if the signals for any business person, if you go to make a presentation, people start watching their phone and their watch and then whispering to the person, then you know that you've lost their attention.
Mm.
And so there are strategies as well to hold people's attention. So like I can actually say, hey, so you want to know the secret of the iPhone that I'm about to present to you? It's absolutely wonderful. So you go from really low and then you go up, and you want to really draw people in. But if you're always at the same level, the iPhone is a good phone to use. It has really good special features. Some people mumble like that, and you can turn it on and turn it off. And I'm sure you've been in presentations where people are like that, and they spend a half an hour and you're just crying. The people sitting are crying to leave. You don't want to be a presenter like that. People wouldn't want to come and sit down and hear what you have to say. So I help with those things, Ed.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So this must also be able to help salespeople, right? I know a lot of the folks who watch the show are entrepreneurs, independent business owners. So can you give us a tip or tell us how your coaching can help them?
Well, I think, like I said before, I mean, it really has to do with everything I do is customized. So I would do an assessment of the person to figure out where their challenge is. And I would say to give a tip to entrepreneurs would be difficult if there was a particular area that we'll have a challenge in. So if it's commanding your audience in a room, one of the things like I just talked about is making sure that your sentences are fluent. And it doesn't mean that you have to be eloquent and smooth and have many words in your vocabulary, but it just means at least make sure that you can grab your audience's attention, even if you have to take your time and form your words. So you may slow things down. Some people may be a little nervous and anxious and want to try and speak too quickly. And what happens at the end of the day is that they end up tripping over their words, or they're not very clear. And, I've learned this, that people may think like for me, I'm from the Caribbean, and people may think, yeah, but he's not from the States, so he may not be able to. But everyone has a voice. Everyone has the same struggles with their tone. Even within the States, I've discovered that you have different accents. You have New England, you have people from Rhode Island, you have Boston, Chicago. And some people in different states don't even understand each other clearly, depending. You have, the Texans, and they're really very, very heavy. And it's like, what? And so everyone, at the end of the day, what coaching does is that you want like a CNN reporter. If you listen to a CNN reporter, there's not a strong accent per se. It's just clear English. And in this global world we live in, we want to ensure that our communication is clear for anyone we speak to. They can be from anywhere, and your business can go so much further. If you're only marketing yourself because of how you speak to just where you are living, then you're limiting yourself. And so what we want to do is to learn how to speak, that we can, once someone speaks English, and pretty much if there's a standard delivery. And so what I would focus on with business people especially is exercising their articulators. There are certain like tongue twisters. We know Peter Piper picked a pecker, picked a pepper. Right. So there are tongue twister exercises that actually help to work your mouth, your articulators, so you don't mumble or too soft. And then teaching you breathing exercises, so you pull up from inside and the lungs. All the air comes in the lungs, it goes through your windpipe and your throat, and it comes out your mouth. If you're not breathing properly, then everything happens in the mouth and you end up just talking like this. So it's a breathing exercise, and it's coaching and training. We have to unlearn the ways that we are accustomed to talking, because we grew up like that. We would only mimic what we've seen, and so chances are we would see people talking in a particular way. Some people don't know how to be softer. They're loud. They're like loud, like right there. Hey, Ed, what's up? Good to see you. Hey, Ed. And it's like, it's too loud.
Yeah.
You have a manager who's really loud, and everyone down the corridor is hearing, you did horrible, Johnny. It's horrible this month. And you don't want to do that. They don't have any consciousness of lowering your tone. I'm just going my door, please. All right, just have a seat. I want to talk about your performance this month. It wasn't so good. And so that's a whole emotional check thing, which goes back to like, your core and understanding difference of nuance. You don't always have to shout. You don't always have to whisper. And so people have to be so self-aware.
Amazing. So this has been just a great little training course in itself. I can't wait to go back and watch this again. And I've, in our PDP group, or in a networking group together, I saw your presentation you did a while ago, and I learned a lot from that. So what about a salesperson who's doing like a one-on-one call? I learned something a long time ago about like mimicking the person's style. So if the person was like from, the south of the United States, and they spoke really slow, when you speak to them, you should speak really slow. And if they're from New England or from New York, you speak like a New Yorker, and you speak really fast, and you talk about them. And, what's your thoughts on mimicking the pace of the person that's speaking?
Mimicking has never worked, because especially if you're not originally from the place that you're talking with the people. And and what happens is that people particularly may not appreciate if you're trying to mimic them or try to sound like them. So for example, if I try to talk to you and I said, yo, Ed, I just want to say I'm really happy to be here on the Ed Live Wednesday show. And what is it? Ed Wednesday live stream Wednesday. Right. Good, Ed. And so people would not, the best thing is to slow down your speech as best as possible, especially if you're talking to someone with a different accent, or if there's this barrier in communication based on your language. So I would advise people, especially if you have a call, slow down your speech. If you're calling the person who's talking in a particular way, slow it down. When you slow down and you articulate, you will find the other person slowing down as well.
Mm-hmm. And that, I actually learned that from you a few months ago when you did your presentation.
Yeah,
because
so
I would go into these bursts of
yes,
just really fast speech, mostly because I wanted to just get my point across, and I realized that when I slowed down, it was much easier to get my point across, and I didn't use as much filler speech, and it made my presentations much
That's
better.
awesome to hear. That's great. So if you're on a phone and you're calling someone and there's like they're talking really quickly, yeah, hello, it's like, hello, good day, hi, I am Daya Ottley. I'd like to speak to you about selling my voice to you if you want to use it for a commercial. What's that? And then they slow down, and then you'll hear them trying to catch up with you.
Yeah.
If you try to catch up with them, the conversation will be lost, and then they will probably tell you, I can't hear you. What? So it's not good it's better to do that.
That's awesome advice. Thank you.
No
So
problem.
Daya, the other thing I wanted to talk to you about is you have a new podcast that's come out.
Yeah.
I think it's called The Core Factor.
Called The Core Factor. That's
Yeah.
right.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so The Core Factor, I'm in the 6th episode right now. I released the 6th episode today, actually. And it's just recently started. I release it every Wednesday. And it really has to do with just what I was talking about, actually, that whole self-awareness. Because for so many people, like I was telling you before the show, I've never really seen someone who is very self-aware, self-assured, and not being conscious or being able to change their tone and their voice. Every time I coach with people who start off being very self-aware, they're mostly aware of the challenges that they have. They want to change it. There's a desire to fix it. They want to come out of a slump. Then I always say that then what is in your core? What is the thing that you ground yourself on that causes you not to move? And it's talking about just life as a human being. We sometimes could be shaken by so many things around us, but we want to be grounded and fixed and not easily moved. And there's this whole core that when you talk about your core and you're exercising, but I focus on the internal part of a human being, that you should be fixed. There should be values that you build your life on that allows you not to shift at all and always to remain focused and fixed. And so I interview people who have gone through life, persevered, and not given up, and then they have a story to tell. And I want them to share that story so that everyone else can hear, hey, inside of the pandemic, outside of the pandemic, why be sulking? Because these are people who don't have perfect circumstances, but they took lemon and made lemon juice. And yeah, that's essentially what the podcast is about. And I'm really having a great time with it.
That's awesome. And so how can people tune into it? Is it on LinkedIn now? Is that where it is?
Right now it's on LinkedIn. It's gonna be on all the main podcast services pretty soon by the end of the week. But people can go to LinkedIn to my page on LinkedIn and they can catch it. Or they could just go to my website. So my website, you can access any of my media services or my social media services there, and which is LinkedIn is one of them as well. So yeah, it's pretty easy.
Awesome. And make sure that you ping me on LinkedIn so that I can push that out for you when you get the network done. So Daya, it's been a tremendous learning experience for me having you on here today. I'm excited to go back and listen to this and learn some more from you. We have to wrap this up now. So I have your website there on the screen. How do you want people to get in touch with you if they want to learn more about your coaching? I know you have your voiceover reel on your website, and there's a lot of good content on there as well. Yeah.
So just simply go to dayaottley.com, and right inside there, so they can reach out to me. It's very easy to find. And once they do that, you can contact me there right on my website if you're interested in finding out more, just having a conversation.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on today. I really appreciate it. Hang out for a minute. I'm just going to say goodbye to the folks, and we'll chat a little bit more afterwards. So I just want to thank everybody for tuning in today. Next week, we're going to be talking to marketing consultant, certified score consultant, and a champion for small businesses, Bob Salvis. So I'm really looking forward to that. Bob's a great guy and a veritable wealth of knowledge, and I think you'll really enjoy what he has to say. So that's it for this week. Before we go, just one quick thing. Would you like to be interviewed on Livestream Wednesday? Visit livestreamwednesday.com. Click the green Leave a Voicemail Here button and record and leave me a voice message, and someone from my team will get back to you within 2 business days. So thanks again for watching today, and we'll see you next week right here on Live Stream Wednesday. Take care.